Welcome everyone, we are Harbingers Magazine. My name is Korycka.
And I'm Natalia Czeredys.
We are here today with our special guest, Ola Salwa, a film critic, journalist, and festival curator whose work combines art, culture, and society. She's known for her insightful way of talking about the cinema.
So to start, we wanted to ask you a question. What's the best film you recently watched that kind of changed your way that you thought about women in cinema or made you kind of realize something about women in cinema?
Thank you so much for this question. I love it because actually this is what the films and cinema in general and maybe broader art is for, to sort of not only watch and forget, but also to maybe draw some conclusions, get inspired. I was hoping that you're gonna finish the sentence like a film that inspired you and not like what is the best film according to you, because I honestly hate this question.
Okay.
Because before I answer your question, I just want to say that I don't believe that there's such thing as best film. I always avoid top 10 films of the year because art is not sports. So how can you basically compare the films? Actually, this is definitely one of the films that documentary films that I watched this year. Actually, I really didn't want to watch it because it's about two women who are in a relationship. They are both poets, and one of them is dying of cancer. And I thought, okay, Millennium Dogs Against Gravity has a brilliant program, but I cannot take any more of sad stories. I just cannot. After watching BB Files about war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu, about a teacher in a small village in Russia who's trying to teach his students how to think with some like critical approach to the propaganda, I thought, okay, halas, no more. And then I watched this film and I was feeling a lot of resonance with both characters and how strong they are and how beautiful their bond is, and how they created modern family around them. Actually, Andrea, who identified as a them, unfortunately she recently passed away after a long beautiful life of love and art, was still in contact with all of their girlfriends, and they created this beautiful I would say support system, and it made me realize how important it is to actually invest in relationships, which at this time when we have such a fast-paced life is not something that we sometimes think a lot. I'm a very driven person. I'm very career-oriented, but with time, and I'm 43, I realized also thanks to cinema, to the movies I watch, how important it is to actually build stable friendships or I don't know, any other social connections, including work-related.
So actually, if we're talking about like specific films and directors, I have a sort of question related to that. So what do you think is kind of the difference in kind of movies about feminism when they're written by a man and they're about women, and if they're written by a woman and about a woman? So kind of how the gender of the director or the producers impacts how the movie is structured and what it talks about.
Oh, this is such a beautiful question. Recently, we talked about it when we were actually discussing film criticism. Is there something like a female gaze of a film critic? Definitely, there is something that people working mainly in academia call a female or a male gaze.
Yes.
Definitely, it's complicated and complex issue in a sense that when a woman is depicted by a man, it's just one of the elements that may, not necessarily makes to portray different. First of all is the script, and it's a genre. There is so-called Alice Blackdale's test, meaning that I can see by the look of your face that you know this test very well.
Yes, we actually have some questions about as well. So
maybe I'll just hit a pause here, and there's just like one of these elements. And for example, it aside from that, it's a question if it's like female-oriented story, and how women are, I'm sorry for this expression, no pun intended, shot by the cinematographer, with how are they moving, for example, within the frame? Do they have agency or not? Not just dialogues that are part of what we're gonna talk about next. And it's a very general question, and I understand why would you be asking this. And obviously, when there is a woman depicting women, there's something different, something intangible, in a sense that women have unique access to female experience. But at the same time, I would like to state that it's not true, or maybe let me rephrase that. I do not agree with the notion that a filmmaker can only make a film about what he or she knows. I don't believe that only women can make films about women, only filmmakers with a previous experience of a magician can make a film about magician. Art is about empathy, about research, about a lot of different things. And there is definitely something to discuss, especially when we think about female directors who identify themselves as feminist directors, or maybe they are actively make political films that focus on female experience, or maybe on activities that are typical or were typical for some women, and to sort of give them space, give them platform, to give them visibility. I don't know, for some reason I'm thinking about, for example, Chantal Akerman films.
Actually, what you said about women depicting women and how it kind of has a different, there's just something about it that you can see it's a woman talking about a woman experience that she maybe had from her own personal life. I want to ask you about Barbie, which is the movie Barbie, of course, which is one of the most talked about movies, I would say, in recent kind of cinematography field. So I want to ask you about what you think about this movie, and more specifically about the fact that it was kind of made by a major brand, I would say. And do you think that anything kind of created by this really large corporation can truly be thought of as feminist? Because I think it's a common kind of maybe misconception, maybe truth, I don't know. It depends on your personal opinion. But that more kind of niche films tend to be more relatable for minorities or just any kind of specific group of people. So I want to ask you what you think about this major corporation trying to make a movie that is relatable for women.
That's actually an excellent question, and I understand your intention. Again, it's a complex thing in a sense that one thing is a corporation, so who pays for the film? And the brand Barbie has a lot of history around the doll and what it stood for, and how it was used in a pop culture as this sort of stereotype of a dumb blonde or a woman that is only valuable or existing through her body, and how this body is shaped, how the body looks. But speaking about film itself, what is really important here as well is who wrote or co-wrote the script and who directed it. It was, as you well know, Greta Gerwig, who's a female director who previously made very delicate, subtle films like Frances Ha about girls that do not really fit the preconceived notion of how a young woman should act, think, or do. There's a beautiful scene where Frances Ha just dances on the street or run dances. But speaking about Barbie, there was a lot of reviews that focus on the question whether it's a feminist film or not necessarily.
Yeah.
To be honest, for me, it's to some extent and to some extent not, because definitely also Margot Robbie, who played the lead, is one of these actors and filmmakers who want to support other women, who wants to support stories told from the perspective of women and by women. I think here it was sort of this experiment in combining big brand with history and with a lot of gravity and preconceived notions with some sort of artistic, I would say maybe input or this attempt, as you usually observe, to make the film relatable and not rejected by women. And based on the film's incredible box office success, I think it was a good choice. And from what I heard also from my female friends and female colleagues, but also men, they actually felt this film is interesting, relatable. So there's that.
Yeah, so actually another interesting thing about the Barbie movie is that I found in my kind of research that it passed it didn't pass the inverse Bechdel test. So as you know, the Bechdel test is basically when in a movie two women don't have a conversation that isn't related to men, and in Barbie it's kind of the other way around, that there isn't a scene where two men have a conversation about something other than women. So maybe, Misha, do you want to ask a question about the Bechdel test?
Do you think it's useful, this way to test representation of the film? Do you think the Bechdel test is appropriate?
I think it's a very good tool to make people, general public, and also decision makers aware that this is not how women should be represented on screen, and that it's really, and it really was, end of a male-driven era of especially entertainment movies. And let me just make a comment about the reverse Bechdel test. I mean, come on, if there's one film when men only talk about women or they don't have thought of their own or anything, they had it coming. It's like, come on. We need to make the situation even for both them and us. But let me get back to the Bechdel test. I think, like I said, it was developed when the mainstream films were much more oriented or focusing around men, which was not always the case, in a sense that recently I watched a few spy films or thrillers, which is my favorite genre, and they were from the early 2000s, late 90s, but they were not produced by corporation or related to any corporation, and there were interesting female characters. For example, Siege or Essential, there were some films that had female characters that had more to say that, oh my God, this meant this or this meant that, unless we technically think about, oh, is this terrorist plotting this or that, a conversation about men. Here, of course, I'm being sarcastic slightly, but to come back to your question, I think it's a useful tool. Now maybe less than before, because we've made a lot of progress when it comes to inclusivity, not only of women but also other minority groups. I still consider women to be minority when we look at how many female directors there are or female producers. I think unfortunately women are still a minority.
Yeah, and as you said that the Bechdel test is kind of less useful than before, do you maybe have some idea of how we could kind of test modern films nowadays in some way that is kind of comparable to the Bechdel test way? Just some modern kind of ways that we can see how much, how women are represented. Is it accurately or is it not enough?
I think we still can use this test, although I'm not sure if there is any need for any other tool. I think it's more about how we talk about films and how the discourse around films or cinema in general or particular film sheds light on women not being appropriately, accurately enough represented, or how they are represented. So I would say that if we have enough film writers, film critics that actually make this a case that hello, this film is that and that, but how the women are represented here, and this is not a comment or a statement that a filmmaker wanted to make. We really should need this to have this conversation again. And I'm saying about deliberate artistic choice because recently I watched a documentary made in Afghanistan, Kabul Between the Prayers, and actually I interviewed the director and I asked him why. There are almost no women in the film except for one sequence when we see the cab stopped by a patrol on the street, and there's a woman who claims that she has no place to go, no place to live. And I asked him if it's something that is a comment from you that, as we know, the sad fact is that women basically vanished from the public life in Afghanistan after the Taliban took over rule in the country. And he said yes, that this is exactly the comment he wanted to make. So we cannot actually use this test. Technically, I'm not sure if we can use it at all for documentaries, but this is more of academic discussion. But if we use the test for this film, that would be maybe not like the ideal, smartest, best tool, since, like I said, Abuzar Amini makes a comment through the absence of women in his film.
Yes, so I actually also wanted to ask about something related to the documentaries, and kind of since documentaries, about something happening right now, aim to kind of portray what is happening in the world as we are watching the documentary. So I want to ask you, how do you think that the portrayal of women throughout the generations, for example, starting with, I don't know, Jo March in Little Woman, and then now all the way coming to Barbie, how do you think it's changed throughout the generations? And does the portrayal of women in movies have a large impact on how women are treated, like, in the everyday world?
I love these questions. I really, really, really appreciate you both asking me this, because this is an important conversation for all of us. And it's a very broad topic, but I will try to make a point that is as concrete as possible. In general, cinema does not exist in vacuum. It always reflects or projects changes that are either happening in the society or filmmakers would like for them to happen in the society. For example, in the 70s, there were more active characters and it was, for example, because of the way of feminism and because of the particular actor like Jane Fonda, who was very also political. And what I wanted to say in answering your question is that I think it's very important how films depict women, and this is not a conversation we have here in Poland. It's more in the happening in the US that is very multicultural, ethnical country. For example, if there is a film or a TV series that features a woman doctor or a women lawyer, female president, it has, or it may have this effect on society that people are in general are able to imagine having a female president, or are more sort of accustomed to see a head of the hospital being a woman, or maybe a woman of color, for example. This is something we call a normalization of women doing this or that within society. And right now, on the top of my head, I only have examples of TV series by Shonda Rhimes, actually. Grey's Anatomy or Scandal. These two shows actually created a lot of discussion, like how it changed how women are perceived, and how it changed many lives of little girls who actually saw a character of, I don't know, Meredith Grey or Miranda Bailey or Olivia Pope, and thought, okay, if she can do that, if she can do that job, so can I. It's a representation is something very important in creating vision for children, for teenagers, like showing like, okay, so this for you is possible. You just have to, I don't know, work hard, do some research, learn this or that, and I hope I answered your question.
Yes.
And if not, there's no plan B.
And do you think cinematography has become or could become a form of protest against the patriarchy or objectifying of women?
Of course, yes, by all means. And it has played this role very often. For example, when the film is portraying abuse. For example, soon there will be a film by Wojciech Smarzowski, Dom Dobry, released in Polish cinemas, and I think by depicting the abuse within the family, it gives, first of all, it shows the scale of the problem, the complexity of a problem, but also it shows that there is a way to get out of this tragic situation. There are organizations that women who experience abuse within the family can reach out to, call, ask for help. And I think there are few ways in cinema can do just that, by showing the problem, shedding light on the problem so that it gets out to the public, it starts a conversation, then maybe in ideal world model the good behavior. For example, if we think about for example Avengers, there is a character of Black Widow.
Yeah.
So for example, okay, if a superhero can be a woman, then women and men are equal. Obviously there's only like one Black Widow and there's like gazillion of Supermans, and what are the names of the Wolverines. I'm sorry, this is not exactly my area of expertise, but I think you get my point. That
Yes.
like by showing that one of the superheroes, it's like not only all men boys club, there are actually women who do not need support of men in order to save the world.
So you mentioned a character from the Avengers, which is kind of, I would say, aims to be a modern portrayal of women, since it's a modern movie, of course. So I want to ask you, when you look back at kind of all the iconic female characters throughout generations, what would you say if you had to choose one female character which you think is the best representation of modern womanhood today? Who would you choose from all of film history?
Who would you choose?
Well, honestly, this is kind of a hard question, I have to admit, because it's hard to choose just one person.
Can you just like give me a few? Because maybe it's this question could be rephrased like, can you give me the names of the characters that you think are the representation of modern women?
Yeah, of course. So I mean, even the characters you mentioned, like from Grey's Anatomy, Meredith. Meredith Grey, yes. Obviously, for example, Merida from like children's
and
movies.
as well Mulan.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, the Disney princess.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then, of course, from Little Women, Jo March, Barbie, as we talked about her before. Misha, I think you mentioned some.
I also thought about Bella Baxter from Poor Things.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I think that her character kind of raises up the question about like what would the woman become if she weren't taught to be obey, please, or to fear judgment. So
that's a very good point.
Yeah, her character I think could be named as a kind of feminist representative. Maybe not feminist because she doesn't do actual feminist work in her movie. Maybe.
Are you sure?
Maybe not straightforward.
Yeah, but is the straightforward way of doing things the only way art works?
Of course not. But I think in many movies people only notice if the character is feminist or not only when they do a work straightforward. And in this movie she doesn't do, so maybe she can be called a feminist character, but not... I don't know kind of how to explain this, but I think you...
No. I think I get your point, and I have a comment that, yes, on the surface, maybe the character has a different sort of definition or can be differently defined as a feminist or not, but this is our work as a film critics to go deeper, to like show different ways of the character's actions, her agenda, all these things that are beneath the surface, all these connections that we see that relate or maybe go into or try to make a conversation with other characters from other films.
So maybe changing the topic a little bit, I want to talk a bit about Polish cinematography. And when you think about Polish movies and films, what do you think is kind of missing from a feminist point of view or from a woman's point of view? What could be also included in new films?
Mm-hmm. Actually, Polish cinema has evolved since I started to work as a film critic, and since I started to watch Polish films. There's more and more, like I said, female directors. When we look at Polish cinema historically, there is Agnieszka Holland, Wanda Jakubowska, Barbara Sazdort, Magdalena Łazarkiewicz, and now I could name at least 10. Agnieszka Smoczyńska, Olga Hajdas, Emi Buchwald, Małgorzata Szumowska also, and I don't know, Anna Jadowska, Jagoda Szelc. There are just so many women who successfully work in film, and through that, but not only through that, we have I would say broader spectrum of stories that are told, and what is still missing, I think, in general, I'm not sure if the female representation I would point out to as like the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about what is missing from Polish cinema. I think more of social oriented films, or politically engaged, socially engaged, having this dense contemporary context, films or themes, is what I feel is missing, because when we look at even films that were shown in the cinemas, putting all the commercial productions aside, no rom-coms, no comedies, these films are very small, like, I'm sorry, not small, intimate, contained. They're very psychological about, I don't know, family or dynamics between two or three characters, and they seem to exist in a limbo. There's little social context. There are, for example, little or almost no films that discuss war in Ukraine and how Poland is, for example, changing because of welcoming our guests from Ukraine. There was only one or maybe two feature films, including Agnieszka Holland's Green Border, that touches the migrant crisis on the border, and there are, for example, a lot of documentaries that discuss that. So I would probably not point out to female representation when we discuss what is missing from the Polish cinema, Polish films.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and perspectives, and we hope this was really beneficial for the listeners as well, who will maybe learn something a bit about women in film. And thank you again for coming.
Thank you. And we would like to invite you to follow Harbingers Magazine on YouTube and also check our website.
Thank you.
Thank you.